Welcome to the stream, everybody.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Sarah, how are you feeling? How are you feeling today about this story? I think we both read it this morning. Yeah.
We did. And so I had never read this before. As I'm going to say, 99% probably of the stories in here I've never read before.
You want to tell
But
us, for anyone just grabbing this replay later from the top, what's the story in question?
well, I would love to tell you. It is okay. Welcome to Story Club, by the way. It is Thursday. On Thursdays, we read horror. And on Wednesdays, if you joined us yesterday, or if you didn't, Wednesdays, we read sci-fi. Today's horror story is taken from The Dark Descent by edited by David G. Hartwell. And it is a fantastic so far compilation of some of the most classic and most beloved horror stories in literature. So today we took a look at Mr. Justice Harbottle, which is such an intriguing title. And this was written in 1872 by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. And I did not know anything about this writer until Asa informed me that this is the person who wrote Carmilla. I think Carmilla came after this story, but it is one of the most famous pre-Dracula vampire stories, if I'm getting that correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Carmilla is a female vampire. I have not read Carmilla. Asa, I believe you might have.
I have a zillion years ago. I don't remember the story well enough to start talking about it. But yes.
Okay, well, that's good because I don't know it at all. And so if you started talking about it, it would just be to yourself. So,
but I do remember loving that novella, Carmilla. And so I was excited to check out the story because I had never read another story by this writer. And this is a juicy read because it really seems in conversation with the other stuff we've read.
Yes.
I definitely today want to talk about this kind of like documents within documents within documents thing that it has going, just like the nested quality of the stories, like the Apocrypha, the citations. It's giving like Lovecraft to me a little bit. And I am wondering if this was just like happening all the time in horror literature back then. I want to talk about the intro and how apparently this was revolutionary in not just the history of the short story, or rather the horror short story, but of the short story. So I definitely want to talk about that. I have some questions because this was kind of a doozy in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that your keen reading mind, Sarah, can help illuminate some things. Anyway, yeah.
Well, same. I'm looking forward to your insights. Well, I'm excited too.
Yeah.
For those of you just joining us, hello. Welcome to Story Club. I'm Sarah. I am a writer and podcast producer who can speak. I'm living here in the Midwestern United States. And I have a background in literature, but there is so much that I haven't read. And so Story Club has been a really exciting place for me to be. So,
oh gosh, that was such a great intro, Sarah. I'm Asa. I write short stories, formerly a screenwriter, dramatic writer. I run a horror collective in Mexico City where I live called Diario de Terror. We have a ghost story show coming up. And yeah, Sarah and I are here, context of this story club. We're here as writers, as avid readers, but also as writers. And so part of the project of this story club is to engage with these classic short stories, horror stories on Thursdays, sci-fi stories on Wednesdays. We actually do live writing on Fridays as a way to improve our craft, to improve our appreciation for literature, expand our conception of what story, literature, words can do. And that's what we're trying to unpack during these sessions. If you're here, let us know in the comments. We've got a lot of other great writers in the mix. So tell us if you're tuned in. And where should we start today, Sarah? Like what would be a good point of entry for this story?
Well, first, even before we do that, how is your writing going this week? I like to frame this conversation around us as writers too. And so I'm curious.
I'm glad you asked, Sarah. It has been a really exciting week. I submitted an application to Tin House on which I know that's like I had heard of Tin House for some time, but I decided it was like a deadline. I was like, I'm going to go for it, which made me finish a story, which I'm really excited about. Under the Pear Tree, if you've been following along, I
Oh
think
my
it's
gosh.
long. I think it's like the best story I've written so far. So that was really cool. I'm like officially done with a strong first draft of my Christmas horror story as well. So it's time for like a new story.
Mm,
Stuff to get back to not cut out for the Snake Show, the
mhm.
Weird Wild West story, but some things have been like moving along in the queue, and so I want to get back to that. But anyway, whatever, it's been good because things have been kind of finishing. Always an incredible
That
feeling. Yeah.
that's great. Like, what a
What,
great feeling.
exactly. I mean, what about you? How's the writing been coming?
This has not been a productive writing week. Let's see. First of all, oh my gosh, Tin House, that's a huge deal. Congrats. Like, I love that you did that. Um,
It was really valuable. Yeah, just to like speak one more thing about it. It was actually, and I might make a little even a video about this. It was actually so you, and I've had this experience before. Part of the application was a artist statement. Just like a
oh.
500 word, kind of where you're at in your journey as a writer. What are you trying
Oh.
to do? And it's just every time I've had to write one of those, whether applying to like grad schools or whatever, it's really helpful. And so that
Mm,
was part of the application. It just kind of made me think a little bit more big picture about what I'm trying to do in fiction. And it was cool. It was cool. It was cool. Yeah. So,
did it
but
clarify anything in particular for
I
you?
mean, it just kind of like, yeah, because you're kind of like naming what you're trying to do more analytically, which I
Mm,
think kind of is always dangerous when making art, but it also can really give you direction, I think.
yeah.
So it was good. It was good. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna do a video about it maybe.
I think you
Um,
should. That would be fascinating. I feel like I would learn from it. So,
yeah, I mean it was very cool, and I really do recommend it to everybody.
oh,
Laura, thanks for the vote of confidence. Welcome, Laura.
yeah, we believe in you, Asa. Like, we're
Well,
just here cheering you on.
I mean, we're all in this together. But yeah, so Sarah, you were saying though, you were saying it's been maybe a tougher week.
It's been a rough writing week.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm even trying to think. You did a ride along earlier this week on your YouTube channel, and I joined it. And instead of writing, I caught up on taxes. And so, I mean, as a self-employed writer, it's one of the like inevitabilities that like we don't have a bookkeeper, and so like I do that kind of stuff. And like, but I also maybe used it as a little bit of an excuse for why I wasn't writing.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's like a shortcut to dopamine. I can do something and feel like I'm accomplishing something without actually making progress on my main project. So there's still Friday. Laura, thank you. That what a beautiful thing to say. There's still Friday. Yes, I can still do some writing tomorrow and have it be a good writing week. That's lovely. What a beautiful sentiment.
There's still Friday, and Friday
There's
will be super fun, y'all, because tomorrow Sarah and I
yes.
are prepping this like very exciting um, writing workshop around weird and eerie fiction.
It's gonna be great. Maybe I shouldn't talk it up, but maybe I should talk it up because we want you to come and we want you to like hang out with us and write weird stuff. So
Let's talk it up. I mean, it's going to be great.
it's gonna be awesome, you
Um,
guys.
let's dive into this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually been finding this question useful. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask it to you again, Sarah. As a reader, what was your kind of emotional experience
Mm.
in this piece when you read it?
I really love that you start off by asking that question, by the way, because academically, usually you start off with like, oh, what is the structure? What are the symbols? What are the illusions and etc. It's like, no, how did you feel? How did the story make you feel from a very human perspective? So I like that. This story, it was riveting for me. It took me a long time to read because, as those of you who have been here a long time know, uh, I'm not only a slow reader, but I take a lot of notes in the margins. And so this story is marked up. from beginning to end. And I read the intro first, which I know we're going to talk about in a second, but the intro mentioned that this story is a favorite of M.R. James, who is an author we've read before. We read Under the Ash Tree. Nope, I'm thinking of Under the Pear Tree. The Ash Tree by M.R.
Yeah,
James.
the ash tree, something
The
in the
Ash
ash tree,
Tree by M.R. James. Under the Pear Tree is the story you submitted, which we're cheering you on for.
The ash
And
tree,
so
yeah.
I was like paying extra special attention because I know M.R. James is a master of the genre. And I was like, I want to know where he maybe got his inspiration. I also know this is a famous writer regarding Carmilla and a bunch of other stuff. So going through, it was a little bit trepidatious. So I had some expectations going in. And there were a lot of, before I get into that, I had a lot of expectations going in, and I felt like, and I don't know if I like this or not, I had some check boxes in my mind because I was like, this is going to be a ghost story. When do we see a ghost? This is a horror story, which I was halfway through, and it felt more like maybe like a mystery setup or something, more than horror. And so part of me was like, is this going to get scary? Like, not that that is necessary for a good story, but just my expectation was that it was going to be scary in some way. I also felt as we went through that it was a little bit of a mystery. And I say that not only in like what is going on, like the larger sense of like what is happening in the story, but my brain kept putting together, it was very like pleasant and pleasurable. Like my brain was like making connections because Le Fanu tells you a lot of stuff that he then later clarifies and connects. So he talks about spoilers, I guess. Please go read it. Pause the video and go read the story and then come back. He talks about Mr. Justice Harbottle, who is our Ebenezer Scrooge-esque main character. He's a lawyer. He's a judge. He's a horrible person, as we'll probably get into. He's grotesque in many ways. He has a housekeeper, and he's doing this trial. Later on, you find out that the housekeeper is the wife of the guy whose trial he's doing. And he doesn't tell you that up front. He tells you that like after you're halfway through the story. And so he just kept like feeding out or like meeting out these little mysteries. And I think that's part of what made it so enjoyable. And like that's really part of what kept me going, is because I was like, he's surprising me at like every turn. Like, I don't know. And so for me, that was one of the pleasant moments. Yeah, I think a lot of my notes in here are also just I was really delighted about the writing as well. And again, so my emotions going through this were also like, this is very competently done. And I felt that. So, and that felt good. So I have a lot of little notes on the margins here, just like, I love this sentence. I love this description. So
yeah,
how about you?
Yeah. I really appreciate everything you just said. And I definitely want to like get into some more of that as we go through, particularly that whole idea of competently done. One thing that stood out for me in the intro for this is this comes from the editor of the anthology, referring to both Le Fanu and Poe, Edgar Allan Poe. He says, their habitual strict attention to unity of mood and economy of means is a quality we take for granted in short fiction today, but was virtually unknown to their more didactically inclined contemporaries. So that is a cool thought. Yes. I mean, there is like a sort of coherence, like we talked a lot about pace yesterday.
Yeah.
The pace is slow, but like consistently slow at a way that's like, we're at exactly 45.5 miles per hour. It's like really tight in that way. So yes. I definitely want to talk about that. And I really like what you said about kind of the pleasurableness of reading this. That is a really exciting, cool thought. And it's kind of like, we've talked a lot about how all the different reasons why we read stuff, and just kind of this idea that it's like tickling the brain a little bit, or kind of like providing puzzles that we are then unpacking. Yeah, you mentioned a whodunit or a detective. It's like there is something very satisfying about a story like this. And I think you're totally right that it is all about this kind of like when information was seeded and when it was like the seeds and the payoffs. Lots of really cool stuff there. And I definitely took notes about some of that as well. I mean, I like kind of struggled reading this but I think it was more of just like where I was at today in just being like distracted or whatever. This definitely is a tale that wants to be absorbing and is absorbing. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was the kind of thing that like, if I hadn't had like day job obligations this morning and had been at like a cabin in front of a fire with no cell service, I would have been on every word. Instead, I like kind of found myself thinking about other stuff and then having to bring it back and having, but whatever, it was great. I did enjoy this story and appreciate the length. And I guess like that is something I would say in regards to yesterday too, is like these were hour-plus reads, and just the confidence that a reader will hang with you. You know, it feels like an antiquated thing. You know, it feels like these writers weren't afraid that you were going to like go watch a different YouTube video or something. You know, it's just like, here we are. I'm going to present this tale. I have confidence in my 45-mile-per-hour pace, and we're going to go for a really cool drive that you wouldn't get to go if this was a 7-minute, you know, through the strip malls type of situation.
I love that. I absolutely love and appreciate that. Like, yeah, very, very deliberate. You also mentioned something, and I went down a few rabbit holes. I think that's part of also why it takes me so long to read. I have ADHD and I get really excited and easily distractible. And so this story, speaking of like mysteries and plotting and pacing and going 45.5 miles per hour, this story first appeared in a short story collection published in 1872 called In a Glass Darkly, which if you're a Philip K. Dick fan, In a Scanner Darkly, and then In a Mirror Darkly, I believe is also a Shakespeare quote. Maybe not. I'm not a Shakespeare buff. Okay, good. I'm probably wrong. If anyone in the comments knows where In a Mirror Darkly comes from, let us know. But this was 5 short stories, all surrounding this detective, an occult detective named Dr. Hecelius. Dr. Hecelius is mentioned very, very briefly in this story, only at the beginning.
I'm so glad you're clarifying that. So does that mean like the prologue is sort of like unique to this prologue is in here because it was part of a collection?
Well, I'm going to say maybe because these are the posthumous papers. So there's like a conceit to the short story collection that Dr. Hecelius died and like somebody is putting together all of his papers and stories. And yes, so that's where, so there's a prologue at the very beginning of Mr. Justice Harbottle. And it's like, here's all these papers I'm going through. There's 2 different accounts. One of them is lost forever. So I'm going to give you the other one. And it's presumably an editor, whether or not it's Fanu writing as a character or as himself is not stated. But yes, these are posthumous papers. So, okay, so here's the Fanu wrote this story. It's a fictional story. It comes from the papers from Dr. Hecelius, which come from an account of the mystery, which comes from 2 different people, Mrs. Trimmer and Mr. What's his name? Mr. Harmon are the 2 people he's compiling data. It's just so complicated. And then these 2 people are being filtered through a third party who is the editor / narrator of the story. So Asa, you talked about this a little bit earlier about the interesting, like, I think I called it found footage previously of like the idea that this story is being put together. And it reminded me a lot of The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft, which is also put together by like assembled papers, journals, accounts. And we talked a little bit about in our Call of Cthulhu video about how that, if I'm not mistaken, sort of gives it like a life of its own. It gives it a depth and a credibility and a context. So we're not just going into the story, we're going into the story that matters to somebody. We're going into the story that was like related to this deceased occult detective's life work, like an occult detective. Like, how cool is that? So there's a lot going on here. And
Yeah.
I feel like I say that every week, but yeah, this is presented as a report on the doctor's papers.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
Yeah, it brings to mind the world building workshop we did on
mm,
Friday. Last week, Sarah and I did a world building and horror workshop. And one of the kind of questions that you should be able to answer, at least for
mm,
yourself, is like, what other kinds of stories exist in the world of your story?
mm,
And I think that that is one of the effects of the I love that, the found footage conception. It's like, we're going to tell this one ghost story, but in case you're wondering, like, this is a world in which ghost stories are told and documented and studied and have conflicting accounts and are like taken seriously, but are still sort of marginalized in the
mhm.
stories. It's like, just identifying like to what extent ghosts exist in this world, to what extent ghost stories exist in this world.
Yeah.
That is a thought that I didn't have when reading it, but you just provided me now. I definitely did also think of this idea of like credibility, that somehow like
Yeah.
packaging it around like academia or whatever somehow imbues it with, this is a true story. I wonder what the
There's
reading
footnotes.
experience was, the found footage. Yeah, like I wonder what the reading experience, like for now, I feel it feels almost like an aesthetic, like this kind of
Mm,
cozy, dark academia type
mhm,
aesthetic a little bit. But I'm wondering if back then it felt a little more. I mean, I think people knew they were reading a ghost story,
mm,
but I'm wondering. I just don't know. I mean, I wonder to what extent people thought that these were papers,
mhm.
that there were accounts, and that the accounts indicate that this is a ghost story. So I'm wondering if actually people thought the accounts were real.
I think that is, well, you and I have both, I don't want to say come from fictional podcasting, but we've both created fictional podcasts or audio dramas. You have your show for Audible, Six Sermons with Stephanie Shu, and I have Girl in Space. And um, I'm trying to remember. Have you ever listened to Limetown or the Black
Oh
Tapes?
yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely Limetown. I think I've put on the black tapes, and I think I listened to maybe like half of the first season of Limetown. Like Limetown for sure, I know. But yeah, tell us about Limetown for anyone who
So,
doesn't know.
okay, so if you haven't listened, they have a book too, which is on my shelf. That one right there. And they also made the fun fact: Facebook at one point was going to make TV shows, and they made one TV show, and it was the adaptation of Limetown, starring Jessica Biel and Stanley Tucci, and it was amazing. Anyway, when Limetown first came out, much like the myth of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds making people panic, there was a lot of questioning going around on the internet as to whether Limetown was real, because it was presented as an NPR story essentially. And then when
Yeah,
the
yeah,
black
yeah.
tapes, yeah.
Joe,
I don't know
just
if
to
you
like,
remember that.
yeah, I do. I just to paint the picture a little bit more specifically for anyone who hasn't heard it. Basically, imagine like a true
Mm,
crime podcast,
yes.
and just like any true crime podcast where you have the producer going into a small town, you had this like producer going into a small town, reporting on this small town, and they borrowed all the conventions, all the
Yep.
tropes from a narrative nonfiction true crime podcast and didn't say it was fiction. So it's like the classic, like, yeah, the early days of like mockumentaries and stuff where like,
Yes.
it's kind of
Yes.
blurring this line, and then like, what,
Yeah.
are you manipulating your audience? Da, 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 da. But it was really good and well done. And it did really achieve that sense of verisimilitude, you know,
Hmm.
because it was so committed to these like journalistic conventions. It did feel real because the story wasn't so preposterous, that it did exist in this kind of plausible supernatural space. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Well,
the TV
and
show was like good. That's so
it's
cool.
so good. It's so good. If you can track it down, I know Facebook has like tried to bury that part of their past. This was pre-meta. when they were going in a different direction. But if you can dig up the show Limetown, it's amazing. Jessica Biel's performance is beautiful. So where I was going with that is not only I think can that make things seem more credible, but the reason that I even learned about Limetown to begin with was the hype surrounding the question of, wait, is this real or not?
Mm.
And that's also what got me into the Black Tapes. The Black Tapes has a very well-known episode called The Unsound, where you listen to this sound and then a year later exactly you die. And like they played it on the podcast. And so like there was all this hubbub on the internet about like, did you listen to that episode? Are we all going to die in a year? And like that's also like part of how I found the Black Tapes. And so I wonder if people were talking about this at the time, talking about, reading at the time. I mean, is this just good marketing? I mean, I know it's more than that. I know it's literary. I know it's beautiful, but like it maybe also serves that purpose of like getting people talking about your story.
I love it. I mean, in some level, I wonder what it is. And it's just kind of just, establishing the sense of like, there are ghost stories everywhere. They are being documented. I mean, it's almost marketing for the entire genre.
Yeah.
You know
I
what
love
mean?
that. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I did not mean to take us down a tangent, but I think that this is a form of story that is difficult to do extremely well. Like it's really difficult to do the story within a narrator, within a story, within the dead person's papers. It's really hard to do that well, but when it's done well, chef's kiss. It's so interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about
rant over.
No, I mean, I love this. Let's talk about why is it done well? Like let's like get into it more. Let's get specific. Like how does it happen? I mean, one thing that I've tracked, and it's hard to, it is so artfully done that it's hard. This is hard to like unpack and like analyze. It just kind of happens to you and it feels like a spell gets cast over you a little bit. But yes, one thing I noticed was like access. Let's dig into the actual conversation that happened between the judge and the old man, because that I think could illuminate this a little bit for us. So what happens here, folks, is we have this judge who's the Scrooge-like figure. He's bombastic and cruel, and he is told that he is going to be killed. There's like a curse told by this old man. And the thing is, though, first, Sarah, if you remember, he comes in the house.
And is invited in.
Is invited in.
Not vampire related, but just is welcome in by this judge who hates everyone.
And the narrator describes that they spend 10 minutes together, but then doesn't tell what happened during those 10 minutes until later. Like, what's going on there? Like, why? Why is that? Why does the storytelling deviate there? I mean,
this touches on, well, it touches on like earlier when I mentioned it was really fun to put like the mysteries together of like, oh my gosh, they're telling us the second to last page that this daughter's name is Marjorie. Like, why didn't you tell us that at the beginning? It's a lot of it seems like purposefully obscured. And I think that this is something, I think it's a very deliberate choice, obviously. But I think I'm like putting my thoughts together on this. He's creating suspense a little bit because the narrator says, at the very top of page 148, I had to find it. What were his adventures? I shall not tell you just now. He does that several times throughout the story. The person who is narrating this account. And I think for me, it worked effectively, like almost like a modern TV show won't be like super linear. Like you'll have the A plot, which is, the two main characters like on the moon, and then you have the B plot, and these two stories are like intercut with each other. And this gives me a little bit of a feeling like that. Like because he says this, and then the narrator steps in and says 10 minutes later, I'll tell you what they said in a second, but and so it's told in this very interesting, I don't know what to call it. They're not quick cuts, but they're
like staggered
scenes. Yeah, staggered is a good word for it. And again, it's very, very deliberate. But yeah, those 10 minutes. So sorry, I'm like going through maybe I took too many notes. I want to say page 148, like later on. I'm trying to find the 10-minute thing. Well, you'll just have to believe us that it's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So he comes in and he says, like, hey, there's a Jacobite plot, which I guess is a political British thing that I do not know anything about.
I know I circled it to look it up and then didn't.
I did not look up Jacobin or
it
Jacobite.
must be a reference to some kind of political overthrow that had happened.
Yeah, well, and I know it's contrasted with the Whigs, so I wonder if it's like a political conservative, loyal to the crown,
I see.
kind of rebellious. That was the sense that I got. But yeah, and he's like, oh, it ruined my supper, but like it didn't ruin his supper. Yeah, the jumping around is just very interesting. I mean, what did you make of it when you read that? Like, they were there 10 minutes. I'm not going to tell you everything they said. Like, how did you feel about that?
It just like, I kind of had this thing that happened where I had to, and I don't know if it has to do with like kind of the mindset I was in when I was reading it, but I made a decision to it's interesting, to turn off the, like, I'm going to stop trying to solve the puzzle a little bit. And I'm just going to like kind of like let this like wash over me.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, I'm just going to vibe a little bit more here with this read and just like run with the fact that this narrator is like, I'm not going to tell you right now. And then we're going to like go out of the office and be in the party a little bit. And so my experience of the story stopped being so much this particular ghost story or this particular man's increasing fear around his impending doom, questioning whether it was real or a dream. Like, that was all happening, but instead actually the kind of like found footageness of it, the non-linearity of it, like became the thing a little bit, It was like almost like the book was this like magnificent like parchment tome with like weird annotations and like the texture of the paper was really cool. And I was like reading the story, but really it was just kind of like I don't know, dimensionality is what's the word, like, just kind of the texture of the way it was told that became for me the most compelling.
Like, you were going through Dr. Hecelius's papers.
Like, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That's very interesting to me. And also, as writers, I want to say, remember Ace's experience reading this story. If you've written stories and they're not catching your reader's attention, it might just be that your reader's having a bad day. So just something to remember,
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. That too. Right. Yeah. I mean, let's turn to like its status as a ghost story. It's to the extent that this story is trying to engender dread. Was that happening for you? And if so, why? Did you care about this man's increasing paranoia? How was it achieved? Let's like go down that road a little bit.
Yeah. So it reminded me a lot of Young Goodman Brown. And it also reminded me a lot of, and I couldn't help it, I had to look up when Charles Dickens published A Christmas Carol, and I want to say Christmas Carol was written in 1843, Harbottle was written in 1872, so about 30 years between these two stories. And like, I know I keep bringing up A Christmas Carol. I'm not bringing it up because
we need to do a bonus edition Christmas Carol.
Let's. Hey, you know what? Guess what we should do this Christmas?
Done. Date. I'll be there.
I love it. But I'm not bringing up A Christmas Carol because it's like, oh, this is like the best book or anything. It's just one of the books from the era that I have read and am familiar with. So like that's the only reason I'm comparing them. But we do have a very Scrooge-like figure who has committed a lot of atrocities, honestly, and has been responsible for a lot of, we find out later, innocent people's executions.
Right.
And so as we're reading this, it's like sometimes when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, this is a terrible person and I'm just waiting for them to die. That was my, so A, I knew this was a ghost story. B, I knew that it was, yes, balloons. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, yeah, so it's a ghost story. You know something terrible is going to happen. And my what kept me going is Justice Harbottle going to change his ways, or is he going to meet an untimely and gruesome death?
Oh, okay. Okay. So for you, there was like a moral element here that this
Yes.
wasn't necessarily a morality tale in the way, say, that whatever that.
The Christmas Carol is definitely a morality tale.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're bad, it's, you know.
Yeah.
So you thought that there was a turnaround available to this character.
I wondered if there might be, or yeah. I wondered if maybe not that was possible for the character, but I wondered if there's early on when we don't know that the people messing with him are ghosts. Like very early on in the story, he's even asking the housekeeper, who is the wife of the now deceased Lewis. Lewis. We'll call him Lewis.
Yeah.
Pineweck.
Pineweck.
That's a hard name for me to remember, but he even asks Mrs. Carwell, the wife of Lewis, like, hey, did Lewis have like a brother or like a twin who could be like pranking me? And so that was one of the things, is I wondered if the objective was, if this whole thing was engineered by humans, if the expectation of those humans was to make him, you know, see the error of his own ways and like apologize, but we later find out that it's not people looking to get revenge or correct his behavior or extort an apology from him. So that was one of the other possibilities that I was working with in my mind.
A basic comprehension thing that maybe you can help clarify. The old man who comes and warns him.
Yes.
Who is that?
Okay. So well, you're getting right at the heart of it, to be honest. Okay. This old man and I thought it was interesting that he's wearing a bottle green coat and like the judge's name is Mr. Harbottle. I don't know. That seems intentional, ? But I don't know why it's intentional, but maybe someone in the comments is wise and smart and well learned and can let us know. So this old man who comes to visit Justice Harbottle, whose name is Hugh Peters. They find this out later. And Mr. Peters comes, gives him this news that there's like a secret cabal after you. You better watch out. Do not do this trial of Lewis. I'm going to just keep calling him Lewis. And Harbottle's like, yeah, all right, go away. And so he sends a servant then. The old man leaves the house and Harbottle sends a servant after him under the pretense of making sure the old man gets home safely. But secretly, and he says this explicitly, he wants to find out, he wants his footman to be a spy. So he wants to find out where he lives. Who is this guy? How did he get information on me? And like, what is his motive? And so, but after that, so he thinks, because this visit from the old man, Hugh Peters, he thinks about it for a long time and he begins to question, like, was he wearing makeup? Was it really an old man? And then a few scenes later, the footman is discovered to have been bamboozled by Hugh Peters, the old man in the bottle green coat, because Hugh Peters is like shuffling along home, ostensibly, with this footman spy. And he says, oh no, I dropped a guinea out of my glove. And if you help me find it, half of it's yours. And, you know, the footman's like, yeah, money. And he bends over to start looking for the guinea. And lo and behold, Hugh Peters is not the old man he says he is or has been pretending to be, because he suddenly starts beating the servant. It's really violent. It says he not only hit him hard once, but he like repeatedly hits him with a heavy blunt object in the back of his skull. It's like that surprised me, honestly. And So yeah, he struck him with a violent blow from above over the back of the head with a heavy instrument, and then another, leaving him bleeding and senseless in the gutter, and ran like a lamplighter down a lane to the right and was gone. So Hugh Peters is not an old man. He's very spry. He is tricky. He gets one over on the footman and thus also on Harbottle. Now the question here is, however, we later find out that like this Hugh Peters has a very strong resemblance to Lewis Pinewick, who is the man who is eventually executed, whose trial he's told to stay away from. And what I didn't understand, and I don't know, maybe we can help each other through this. He's able to beat this footman over the head, knock him unconscious, leave him in the gutter, and run away. Is it a ghost at this point?
Well, no, I don't think so. Okay, I think
because it's Lewis Pinewick in disguise,
who's still alive
at this point, but who is in jail. And so Harbottle calls the jail, and he's like, "Hey, is that Lewis Pinewick guy? Is he still in there? Is he still locked up?" And they check, and it says, I want to like read this verbatim. "The prisoner was safe, however, and no question as to his identity." Right. So it's definitely Lewis Pinewick in the cell.
Okay. So this is very whodunit vibes. So who are other? Okay, right. So first of all, is that fact credible? I guess is one question. Two, if it's not Pinewick, who is it?
Exactly.
There's a brother in Jamaica who supposedly died.
Right. It's almost like right later on, like we talked about earlier, Harbottle is not a fool. Like, he is suspicious. He, you know, a thief knows a thief, right? Like, he is an evil trickster, and he's looking for other people to be evil tricksters. And so he just almost immediately asks, like, was that guy, he was wearing old man makeup. Okay, who was underneath it? Oh, I think it was Lewis Pinewick. Also, hey, Mrs. Carwell, you know, does Lewis have a brother? Yes, she says, but he died in Jamaica. Oh, who told you he died in Jamaica? Lewis did. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is Lewis's brother / twin brother, who's dressing up like an old man to deliver this essentially a threat to not go forward with his brother Lewis's trial. Then things get confusing.
Yeah, I mean, this feels maybe. I'm glad you brought up young Goodman Brown, because yeah, I mean, it seems like we just don't know, and it's one of these like questions that maybe we're just supposed to be asked to hang with. We're not going to explain this. It doesn't make sense, right? And presumably, Fanu knows it doesn't make sense, because it's person is very precise about what the heck they're doing. Yeah. Hi, Kitty. What's your cat's name again?
Baby Cyrus.
Baby Cyrus.
Baby Cyrus.
And so it's like, right. Yeah, exactly. It gets back to this question that we keep coming back to, Sarah, is like, when can you just quote unquote be confusing, omit information that your reader potentially wants? Like, when can you get away with it and when not? And at least what I kind of keep coming around to is like, if there's just like some kind of inner logic, some kind of alchemy at work in Fanu's brain that we probably, or at least I won't right now crack, because I just don't know why. I don't know why you would leave that fuzzy, but it kind of works, I guess.
It does. And part of me wonders if I had read it multiple times, I feel like this is the kind of story that, like, because so many things are revealed after they're talked about, like the identity of Harbottle's housekeeper as Lewis Pinewick's wife, who's estranged but still his wife. I feel like it's meant to be read multiple times. And I wonder if it's not being obscure so much as it is dropping clues that maybe I didn't pick up on in my first read.
Mhm.
Or maybe I'm being generous by saying that. Um, but I think from a writer's perspective, it's considered good form, at least in mystery, to provide your reader with all of the clues they need to understand and to solve the mystery themselves before the detective does. And there's an art to that. And I know Le Fanu wrote detective stories. This is actually one of them under the guise of being a deceased occult detective. So I'm wondering, I just want to make room for the possibility that I've only read this once and there may have been some clues that I missed. And so this might not be a fault of the author. It could be a fault of Sarah, not reading this multiple times.
I mean, same. Yeah. It could be there. It could totally be there. Is it okay? Well, let me ask you this, Sarah. At what point the psychological descent possibility, right? We always have that reading. We always have that reading on the table for us that there were never ghosts, that this guy just went nuts, that his evil ways caught up with him. He started imagining ghosts and eventually took his own life by hanging himself off a stairwell, right? I mean, what about that reading here?
I think I think it's both. And I'm going to justify that.
Yeah.
Okay, here goes. So, Hugh, I always want to say Hugh Jackman, but that's an Australian actor. What is his name? Hugh Peters. Oh, I apologize to everybody for being so bad with names. I'm terrible at names. Hugh Peters is real. Hugh Peters is real. He assaults the footman. The footman is bleeding in a ditch. That is not a figment of Justice Harbottle's imagination. We know that part at least has been verified by multiple people. And so at this point, we know factually, A, Lewis is still in his jail cell. B, this is probably his brother. And he probably, as a forger and a liar and a thief, or maybe not a forger because we'll get to that in a second, to his crimes, but he's not a great guy. He's kind of a trickster. And so, yeah, he'll lie about the existence of a brother, especially a brother who looks like him, if,
right,
to his estranged wife, who they had a very abusive and quarrelsome relationship. So,
right.
Yeah, I have a dead brother.
Presumably this Pinewex Lewis's vendetta here is not just that his life may depend on whether or not Harbottle, it's also his wife left him for this guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And took him for all he was worth financially, it kind of sounded like.
That too.
Because she is a housekeeper, but she is wearing diamond rings. She is wearing silk. She is she did something to give Lewis reason to want revenge, maybe on both her and Harbottle. Right. So yeah. So I think that at this point in the story, this person is real. Now, does Justice Harbottle's descent into madness coincide with the ghost part of the story? Is I think the big question. And I think simultaneously, yes and no. I think both things are happening. I think that he is. Well, if we look at the trial scene, there's a trial in hell. So Harbottle falls asleep outside of a playhouse, the jury playhouse, and he's supposed to meet two friends for dinner. And he falls asleep in the snow, apparently, I don't know, in a carriage in the snow waiting for them. And he has this and it says in the story, he wasn't sure if it was a dream or if it was a vision or a nightmare, or if he had actually somehow visited a hell dimension. And he is here on trial. Another person who he'd sent to a wrongful death in the past, Dingley Chuff. These names, right? Dingley Chuff is here to escort him into hell, where there are these Minotaur blacksmiths making a chain, and they make a shackle for his ankle. They actually weld it to his ankle, and his
wild.
And his skin is bubbling. It was really graphic. I was ha, horror. And I was gleefully, yeah, that's the kind of reader I am. But there's also a hangman there with a noose who says, "This is a rope for Justice Harbottle." And very later on, there's always a plausible deniability. So later on, it's, "Oh, I fell asleep, so this might have been a dream." And
Yeah, because
maybe very well may have been
he
a
wakes
dream.
up with like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. He wakes up with those two councilmen who he's like partying with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He wakes up
So
with them. They say, "We've only been gone for 10 minutes."
he falls asleep with them and he wakes up with them. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that seems like okay, bad dream, nightmare.
Right. Or, hell dimension. But
Yeah.
um
But yeah, no, but to your like this idea of plausible deniability, it could have
right.
happened or it could have been a dream. Yeah.
And even with the ankle, it's established early on in the story that Justice Harbottle has gout and it bothers him. And it
Right.
manifests in problems with his ankle. And like, so the author is just really sneaky here, and he's like, well, is he having a bit of the gout? Like, is he having a flare up? Or, is this from like actually being like burned in hell? They kind of lead us to believe that it was a gout flare up that, he also like mashed up as like in his nightmare as this happening, but the possibility is still there. So, and one other thing, sorry, talking about the real aspects.
Yeah.
After he gets Lewis killed, after Lewis is hanged for being a forger, Justice Harbottle has a vision of Lewis returning from the dead with the hangman's noose bruise around his neck, and he gives him a letter and like disappears. And the letter is only ever seen by Justice Harbottle. And we even get an appearance from the editor on page 157.
Okay, so wait,
and it's in brackets.
Before, I want to talk about that courtroom scene. No, briefly, just before we move on, because earlier we were talking about Shakespeare. That felt straight out of Shakespeare. Where he sees the ghost in the courtroom, right? Like that happens in Macbeth when Macbeth's at dinner and Banquo, who he killed, shows up, and then it happens again in Hamlet, I think, right? Doesn't Hamlet see like the ghost of his dad? That
yes.
And I think in each case it's like a similar, certainly Macbeth, like Macbeth kills Banquo. Banquo shows up at dinner party and no one else sees Banquo except for Macbeth. It's like a symbol of his guilt, a symbol that he's going crazy. Is Banquo actually there or not? Is the ghost of Banquo there, or is just Macbeth losing his mind? Similarly, we don't know. So that feels in line with the plausible deniability. Like maybe there's a ghost who's there in that courtroom that only he can see, or maybe his guilt is like manifesting itself, like there's hallucinating this dude that he murdered.
Now, my question to that is, do you think Harbottle is actually feeling any guilt at this point?
I don't know if there's any indication of that. I mean, he's just kind of seems perpetually looking out for his own skin, kind of like he's worried. He is concerned. He basically, I think the principal emotion he goes through is just like, this is preposterous, but it seems really real, right? Like his main kind of emotional engagement is for his self and his own safety.
Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting thing, and that contrasts
that's a great
with
observation.
The
There's literally no compunction.
No remorse, no guilt. The only thing that's bothering him is somebody going to kill me on the 10th of the month? Literally, he doesn't say like, and he goes through with Lewis's trial. He executes Lewis knowingly, wrongfully. This is a person who doesn't have guilt. And so I think I love that you brought up Macbeth and Banquo, because Macbeth is feeling guilty, and that's why Banquo is there, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, Macbeth has that moral dimension. This brings us back to, there's another good line in the intro here that I'll read. Both Poe and Le Fanu offered examinations of the human psyche in abnormal circumstances. Le Fanu is unquestionably there is unquestionably supernatural evil at work against an evil man. So we have supernatural evil against an evil man. And yeah, I do think that is kind of anomalous. Normally the man or the character involved is like at some level a victim. If you take a commercial horror movie, the people being haunted are usually good. Like, the most recent like Conjuring movie, or like the entire Conjuring franchise. It's like a wholesome family that has to fend off evil spirits. And here we have an evil guy fending off an evil spirit. And that, I think that helps unlock this for me a little bit. Yeah, that really does make it exceptional.
Yeah, like I'm even trying to think, like, I don't think there was a point in the story where I was even halfway rooting for Harbottle. I wanted him to get what he deserved. Like,
okay, that's awesome. That is super interesting then, because we both enjoyed this story, right? So it's like, okay, typical story expectations are being inverted here. Like, protagonist, we talked about this yesterday with the captain. It's like they're our proxy, and we're going through the world as them. And even if we don't like them, there's like, we can kind of get behind them in some kind of way. And neither of us really felt that for this character. So why was it that what other ways in which, what's the story doing? What is the like logic of it? If it's not like that kind of character driven traditional empathy through protagonist mode.
We're actually like encouraged to distance ourselves from Harbottle. We're like, because he's described so many times with an air of disgust. Like the very first time his face is mentioned, his face is purple and covered in pimples. Like it's kind of gross. Like we are not encouraged to identify in any way with Justice Harbottle.
Okay, I did just have a thought that while he doesn't feel guilt, he does see himself in the tyrannical judge in hell. Right? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Chief Justice Two-Faced? No.
Yeah.
Twofold.
Like twofold.
Chief Justice Twofold.
Oh, him twofold, maybe is what that is. Yeah, like and it says that's the one thing that was real. He was like, he didn't know if it was a dream. He didn't know what was going on. But one thing that he knew was real, that was true, was that this judge was him worse. And he couldn't overcome the judge. No matter what he said, this imagined judge or whatever was the version of him that was like so savage, so litigious, so bullying, all the things that he was in the courtroom, demeaning him. So there is a recognition.
You know what? You are right. You're right. And I wonder if this is maybe someone who is really out of touch with their feelings, someone who has learned to set their empathy and morality aside so that they can live life on their terms. And I say that because there's something in him, right? If this is a dream, there is something in him that is saying like, hey, you're kind of a rotten person and here's how all your victims felt. But he did not consciously summon that. He has learned to relish abusing other people, and he has shut down that side of his humanity. And so it's just, I'm wondering if his subconscious is like, hey, you should feel guilty, or who's trying to teach him a lesson, or if he's just struggling to continue to tamp down the guilt that he subconsciously feels over all these horrible things he's done and how he's treated people.
Interesting. It's interesting. Again, I mean, yeah, like why, I don't know if there's more than recognition though. Like I don't think it gets to this point of like guilt or regret.
No remorse, like, no regret. Nope.
It's awareness.
Yes. Yes. It's a hint of self-awareness, but it is not the type of self-awareness that is going to lead to any sort of personal change. I don't think, because he reacts to it with anger and he denies things, and he has his defense ready. He gives a defense to Chief Justice, not Two-Face, Chief Justice Twofold. He has it prepared. He pleads. Hold on one second. We do not eat the plants. He has his defense ready, and he specifically pleads not guilty.
Right.
So he is still refusing to admit to these things he's done. He won't even admit it, let alone show guilt or remorse. Like, he's just denying flat out that he has wronged anyone. And it's like, you have court records.
Well, and that's consistent because he doesn't really care about
Uh-uh.
rightness or wrongness because he runs his court. It's like a
For
kangaroo
personal
court or
means.
whatever, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's no.
Yeah. And everybody he sends to their untimely and unearned death are his personal enemies. Like, he's using the justice system to get revenge on people he doesn't like. Like, and the story just openly tells us that. So,
I mean, it's really unique. I mean, yeah, because the ghost is also, even if he was innocent, you said this, even if he was innocent of the forgery, still like not a good egg.
no. He's not a great person, and he has like he's pictured several times with like he's like gaunt, and he has this like sardonic smile, and like if he had a mustache he would twirl it. Like
Yeah.
we're not led to think that this is like a pure cherub from heaven. Like,
Right.
Lewis is not a great person.
You know, I'm just thinking about like the myriad Japanese ghost stories, both in fiction and film, you know, where it's a wronged woman coming back for vengeance. You know, that trope is just rampant. And in those cases, it's like that ghost, and this is outside of Japanese ghost stories, obviously elsewhere. It's like a wronged soul. A soul is sticking around to right a wrong. They've been wronged. And it's like, what's his face? Lewis, like, yeah, he was wrongly murdered, but he was also like, could have been completely plausibly convicted and executed for murder for some other offense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this like a really early version of, I'm going to drop a word we haven't said in this book club yet, noir? I read a collection of short stories of noir stories a long time ago, and I remember a really interesting definition of noir in the intro where it defined noir as evil wins. That like what makes a noir story is that evil wins. And I wonder if there's a little bit of that here because the ghost is evil, but like in a I'm not sure where I'm going with that because like ghosts are often malevolent. I don't know. I'm not sure. It comes
And
to mind.
malicious and vengeful.
It comes to mind.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting like trail to follow, right? Like, and I don't know how much like mixing of different genres are present because we already have horror and mystery, and so like yeah, maybe a little bit of the noir is in there as well, like pre-noir,
Right.
before that came about. I'm curious, talking about Justice Harbottle's descent into what is ruled a suicide and might have been ghost murder. Although he goes to it willingly. Okay, wait, let's talk. Can we talk about this, or do you want to like get into something else and then we'll get into this?
Let's definitely talk about that.
Okay.
I'm just so compelled by that. Like, was it suicide or was it ghost murder? You know, that's great. Yeah, let's get into that question. But wait, but goes to it willingly. What do you mean there?
Okay, so can I also point out his doctor's name is Dr. Headstone? Like if your doctor's name is Dr. Headstone, don't go to that doctor. Don't go to Dr. Headstone. Dr. Graveyard, Dr. Death, don't go to any of those doctors. They're not good. So, okay, what happens is at the end of the story, there's a lot that happens. There are 3 witnesses to ghost-like occurrences. And the word ghost is actually used for the first time on page 165. So
okay, great note.
Yes. So that sentence says, Mrs. Carwell, again, that is the housekeeper / estranged wife of Lewis. Mrs. Carwell was very much frightened and now concluded that the child must have seen the same ghost that had just appeared to her. So 3 women, and again, maybe this is a fun like biblical reference to like the 3 women who saw Jesus after his resurrection. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it. But the daughter of Mrs. Carwell saw a mysterious man who she describes the man to her mother, and she describes Lewis, who is her father, who she has never met.
Right.
Okay, so this little girl sees the ghost of Lewis. And then later, Mrs. Carwell sees not Lewis. She sees the hangman with the droopy face, with the melting face from Harbottle's vision.
Dream. Right.
Yes.
Right.
But we do also know that he confided that dream into, like, in her. So she knew about the dream. So
right.
Did she imagine this? I don't know. There's, again, plausible deniability. And then the third person who sees the ghost is a scullery maid.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this beat. Yeah,
who sees the hell vision. So the room is thick with smoke. So this is from the point of view of the scullery maid, who, as we are told earlier, is a low-browed, broad-faced, intrepid wench with black hair who did not valley a ghost, not a button. So she does not believe in ghosts. We are told that explicitly.
Okay.
And then a few paragraphs later, this scullery maid, I love intrepid wench. I want that as my title. She is going through the house. All of the rest of the servants have all been dismissed to Buxton, where the justice is going to go stay and like do some healing with like spa, mineral treatment, whatever. And so there's nobody in the house. And the scullery maid goes in. Let's see. I'm just going to read this. She walked softly out into the passage and was surprised to see a dusky glow issuing from the room as if from a charcoal fire. And we hear about charcoal fires in the hellish nightmare that Harbottle has about his trial and the leg irons and all that horrible stuff. Looking in, she very dimly beheld a monstrous figure over a furnace, which we were told earlier, like, is a minotaur, beating with a mighty hammer the rings and rivets of a chain. So this is the same figure as Justice Harbottle. Now, did she... There's just a lot of questions. Like, I mean, did she see this? Did she hear from Mrs. Carwell about this vision that Harbottle had and is parroting that back? Or having nightmares because of it, I don't know. But they make it a point to say that like these three women all had credible like ghost visions on this night.
You're right.
And so, okay, so after this happens, the scullery maid is freaking out. And so somebody goes to check on the judge because she also admits the hell nightmare. She also saw the judge's corpse. So like, oh my gosh, go check on the judge. And I'm going to read one more thing and then I want to discuss this, if that's okay.
Yeah, Sarah.
Okay.
Everything's okay.
Okay. They found him being Justice Harbottle. They found him not in his bed, but in his room. He had a table with candles burning at his bedside and was getting on his clothes again. And he swore and cursed at them roundly in his old style, telling them that he had business and that he would discharge on the spot any scoundrel who would dare disturb him again. So they shut him in his room and leave him alone because he threatens to fire them. And that's the last thing we hear about him before he is found hanging and dead.
Right.
So he's putting on his clothes and he has business to attend to. So.
Okay, so that's where you're getting the willingly. It's like he's heeding the call. He's headed to court, or whatever it is. Interesting. Yeah, I like that.
But and then later they say there was not the smallest sign of any struggle or resistance. There had not been heard a cry or any other noise in the slightest degree indicative of violence, which is why they ruled a suicide.
Okay, good point.
So, if it's a suicide, that makes sense. Well, I mean, you might still struggle, but like, it doesn't look like he was like ghost murdered. Or if he was ghost murdered, it was done in a way that just looked like suicide.
Okay, right. So, that's really interesting. So we either have a person who's losing their grip from reality maybe there's some kind of moral reckoning that's happening. They see themselves in the mirror in this vision. They see this tyrannical, monstrous judge, and it drives them to end their own life. Or there's some kind of malevolent force punishing him for wrongly murdering not only Lewis, but others, cajoling him to a place where he takes his own life to free himself from the torment. Those both seem very plausible. Okay.
I don't know if you lean toward one or the other. For me, like, these three like women in the house who like see these ghosts, like, that says a lot to me. And it's kind of open to interpretation. He was getting his clothes on again. He told them that he had business and he's going to fire them. Is his business, I'm going to like put on these clothes and like go kill myself? Or is it, my business, I'm going to go for his sentencing? Or his, like,
he
his
has
execution?
He has a court date. It's not a court date. He has an execution date. And the date is alluded to. It's like, you like 1 month from today.
Yeah, the 10th. And it's the 10th, and he knows that.
And he knows it.
Or it's the night of the 9th. I don't.
But he did try to like fend it off, though, right? Like, he's like, even that night, he's like, nothing's gonna happen. But I do think that, to your question of like favoring one or the other, I do think that I at least favored that the ghost malevolent spirits drove him to this, because I think that we get sufficient third party affirmation or confirmation that these malevolent supernatural forces are at work. And I like what I wanted to talk about in terms of our wench in chief of this story, and like kind of just like a writing, yesterday we were talking about some like technique things. Like, this really felt a really deft shift of POV that I thought also felt modern, like quite modern, in that we go from primarily the stories telling the story from Harbottle's POV, and then we slip into Carwell, and then we slip into this like completely tertiary character who is unnamed, this like scullery wench or whatever the heck, and get like to use that camera idea that we keep coming back to. It's like all of a sudden we're in that room with her. She's the only one in the room, and that's what the camera is. I thought that was I thought that was great.
I think it makes me want to read more of his works, definitely. And I don't know, and this is true with both the science fiction and the horror stories we've been reading. I'm learning that all of the things that I was assuming about like older literature, and I'm like, oh, this is so modern. Maybe it's not that modern after all. Maybe it's just good storytelling.
But no, or maybe that's why these are the ones in the anthology,
because they blaze the path. Yeah, maybe so.
That's why these stories get remembered. Again, just in our larger horror literature education here, what the editor says here is that Fanu and Poe were special and different in that their stories were less, what's the word he uses here? Didactic? Trying to find it.
Let's see.
Didactically inclined, right? So meaning that I guess other short stories at the time had a little bit more of a like, this is the message, right? Which would lend itself to like, maybe A Christmas Carol is kind of the epitome of that, and maybe that's like the most realized version of that, and therefore that's why we keep reading it. But maybe the rest of those are just like all the kind of off-brand versions of that are like gone, and this we keep reading because it refuses to give us that.
I like that, and it does remain. It's interesting. It has a satisfying ending, but it also remains a little bit of a mystery, and it keeps my brain at least keeps chewing on it, like, oh, but like this, but this, but this, maybe it was his twin brother who supposedly died in Jamaica. No, I think that's
Well, our classic question: what are you going to take for this? What are you going to apply here? How are you going to use this story in your own writing?
That is a good question. I feel like with a lot of other stories we've read, like I've come away with like very clearly like this. And I think in this story, I was I was pretty absorbed in it. Um and so a lot of even the notes I took were like plot related and question related, and it wasn't like, oh, I like the style here. I did like a lot of the writing, and there was actually some like really funny insults and stuff throughout from this horrible person. But honestly, I think what I'm going to take away is like part of me wants to play around with the found footage, with
Mm.
the oh, I found these papers in a basement and I'm assembling them, and oh, they're the pages of a journal of a a mysterious doctor, blah blah blah. Like I think that that could be really fun to just play around with. So what about you? What are you taking away from this?
I like that. I mean, I'm, I like thinking about these like in the biggest way possible. And I think like taking that away, like making something fun to read
Mm,
and thinking about that as like a legitimate project that a piece is trying to achieve, in addition, like that could be its sole objective, but like also it's just if we're trying to say something or whatever, it's just like let's make this pleasurable to
mm,
read. And just like
mhm.
the again, like coming back to this word like sensual, there's something sensual about again like that, like a image I had of like reading this old book in the parchment.
Yeah.
That's really exciting to me. And I'm also really inspired by this kind of the way that this story is working on me, at least without any kind of traditional hero protagonist. And we've
Mm,
seen that a lot in the short stories. I think one thing we've learned already is that like short stories don't rely on that basic template of injecting an emotional experience through a leading character. But this definitely is another example of that. So for me, I think I'm going to kind of continue to let my mind be open with the project of a given short story being something completely apart from character in a traditional
ooh,
sense.
ooh,
I think that's like a thought that I'm having.
interesting. I like that. Well, and arguably the voice of the narrator. So this is told in parts of this are told in first person. It begins 30 years ago, an elderly man to whom I paid quarterly a small annuity. Because that's fascinating. But there's a narrator who identifies as I, and like arguably is that our main character?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole. I mean, I think actually that's really important, Sarah, because I think that just further diminishes the. I mean, it's another way in which the story asserts that this is not about character, because like it's doesn't we don't even know who's actually telling us this
Nope.
story
And it's
because of the
muddled.
nested doll
Uh-huh. Yeah.
nature of it.
I have questions in the margin like, wait, who is this now? Like who
Right.
wait, who is this? Like who is this landlord? Like, and what is the house in the dark street in Westminster? Like what does that have to do with anything? Like it's just it's so nested. But it's also we don't know who it is, but we know they have very strong opinions on Mr. Justice Harbottle because they're like, oh, he by no means was disturbed by this. He loved doing immoral things. Like, oh,
Mhm.
and it's very judgy. Like it's very clearly biased.
Okay, this is like a really cool like left field like reading that I probably would have written in like a high school class maybe, was
Mm,
that like this could all be like the whole ghost story could be like an act of defamation against Harbottle, like some kind of apocryphal like here's this whole ghost story to like make maybe the dude just suffered from mental health and took his life on the stairwell, but somebody had a vendetta, some kind of meta version of it.
oh my gosh, I kind of love that.
I know, right?
I mean, high
I don't,
school Asa, like go
yeah,
forth, write that
right. Just
story,
like just write that paper with total confidence.
write it. Oh, I love it. Oh,
All right,
that's
everybody, we're
fantastic.
grateful for you. I'm going to post a link to a Discord server that
Oh
we
yeah, I
have
will do the
here.
same.
If it's your first time joining us for Story Club, we're so glad you came. And yeah, we got a Discord where the conversation continues. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And tomorrow is a double feature for Sarah and I. in response to the announcement of the newest Nobel Prize winner, whose first name is Laszlo. This writer is new to me. Sarah and I are doing a last minute stream where we're going to be reading a short story by that writer and talking about it. And so we're going to learn about this writer and share with you what we learn, and also engage with this person's work vis-a-vis a short story that's in the Yale Review. You can Google it and read it alongside us. I forget the name, but that's where you'll find it. And so that is going to be at 10:30 EST tomorrow, if you want to join. And then at 4 EST tomorrow, we are doing a horror writing workshop talking about the difference between the weird and the eerie. Absence of things that should be there, presence of things that should be not, with prompts, with exercises. It should be a great Friday in October.
I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm here for it.
Cool.
So, well, Lisa, thank you for doing this. Thank you for going through the story with me. I always come out of these with like a better understanding of like what the story is
Big
and
time.
like
Same.
what I think about it. And yeah, there was a lot going on in this story. So I'm grateful to have discussed it. So
no, thank you too. Yeah, this was a good one. All right, everybody.
All right.
See you soon.
See you soon. See you next Wednesday for Sci-Fi Story Club, Thursday for Horror Story Club, and Friday for writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Bye for now.